I'd like to start by acknowledging that tonight we meet on Gadigal land, and I'm so proud to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and a special shout out to our Go students. It's such a special thing to be on land that always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and to be here celebrating the work of this foundation and of Adam and Mick. It's wonderful to welcome you all here tonight. There are still seats at the front. I'm going to talk for about an hour and a half, so if you don't want a seat... Usually on a night like this, I'd spend some time sharing with you what we did in the past year and what we're aiming for during the next 12 months. I'd tell you that we grew our scholarship numbers, that we increased the size of our ecosystem, that we increased our partnerships, and our fundraising went well. I'd share with you the story of our launch in Adelaide next week, such a special milestone in Go's journey. As Mick said, they've always wanted to take the program back to Adelaide, but what we're hearing from people in Adelaide is the immense pride that they feel that their sons are bringing their success home. And I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge the work that Adam and Michael have done. But tonight, rather than sharing a list with you of what we've achieved, I'd like to share stories of our students, because at the heart of our program are our kids. And it's their stories that are really our success. So I'd like to share 3 examples with you, if you'll bear with me. This year, when we looked at the applications for our Public Education Foundation scholarships, we received over 11 applications for every place we were offering. Each application was 14 or 15 pages, and I think it's testament to the commitment of our board and our organisation that each one of those scholarship applications was read at least 7 times. The gravity of saying no to a student is very heartfelt by the people at Go. In those applications, there were 3 very common themes. The absolute dire need for a program like Go and the scholarships we offer was evident on the face of every one of those scholarship applications. There were children working 3 jobs to support mum so she could pay the rent. There were children who lived 45 minutes from their school and had no means of transport to get there, so they'd walk. But that meant on stormy days they couldn't go to school. There were lives affected by trauma and the racism of low expectations. There were children living by themselves, children who'd emancipated themselves from parents, who were living with extended family to focus on education. There were parents who were struggling to pay the bills and put food on the table. And these stories weren't 1 in 10 or 1 in 100. They were in every single application we read. But the applications had 2 other things in common. At Go, one of our criteria is cultural pride and a strong cultural identity or sense of cultural identity. And in every one of those applications, we saw the strong pride in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander identity coming through. Children who had very little else, but were in dance troupes, in NAIDOC celebrations, doing welcomes to country at school, doing mentoring of other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. Students who were relying on their love and connection of country to get them through. And the other thing we saw was the incredible aspiration and dreams that came through these applications. Children who somehow had figured out that if they worked hard and had an opportunity, if doors opened, that they could make a go of it and they could empower themselves to change their lives. And that's what we were looking for. And you heard from Bronte tonight, and can I just take a moment to acknowledge what a remarkable speech that was. I've seen Bronte over the last few years develop into such a beautiful young woman, confident and able to deliver a speech like that. So just congratulations, Bronte. So you've heard tonight about what a difference those opportunities make and what difference it makes to open doors. I'd like, if I could, to read from 2 applications, and I'm not going to identify these students. I just want you to get a sense of the aspirations that these kids have. I moved to Sydney and away from my family so that I could have more opportunities. However, there have been hardships I have faced. Living away from home without my support network of family and friends is difficult because I don't have my parents close by to talk about personal issues or help to organise me so that I manage my time well to reach my potential. I've had to develop these skills and it's very hard. I am at risk of having to move home and away from these wonderful opportunities because of ab-study payments and the hostel and the cost of living away from home. But I'm dedicated and I give 100% to my education and sport. And this from a child who has worked so hard to give herself opportunities. In the future, I would love to be a police officer. I repeated Year 10 so that I could get better grades, and I'm working hard this year. My school reports say my grades have increased by 30%. I believe that the contacts and support the scholarship will give me will help me achieve my dream. I'm willing to work hard and finish school with good marks, and then to go to Canberra to study at the Australian Federal Police College. I left my home to get away from violence, drugs and alcohol because I felt that the environment was putting me on a bad track. I'm determined not to follow in my parents' footsteps. So they're the applications. But I'd like to share with you now one very special story. I had probably the most astounding day of my career about 3 months ago. We get emails all the time in the Go Foundation inbox from social workers, from teachers, from parents asking for support for their students. And this one came from a young social worker who'd started working with a young Aboriginal man of 17. And this social worker said, the email was very similar to other emails we'd received, with one exception. It talked about how he was in out-of-home care, in resi care, how he was living in violent circumstances. He just needed a safe place to live and an opportunity. But at the end of this email was one line that really got my attention. It said that he wanted to be an astrophysicist. When I was 17, I didn't even know what astrophysics was. The next day, I arranged to meet this child, this young man, and I was just blown away by his good grace, his humility, and his just sheer determination. And at the end of the meeting, I asked him what we could do to help him. And he said, Shirley, if you can just get me a safe place to live and get me into university, I'll do the rest. So the next day I came back to my office and I sent an email at 11 o'clock in the morning to a number of our ecosystem partners, all of whom are here today. And in that email I asked for a number of things. I explained this young man's situation and I asked for accommodation, for a job and entry to university. And after, I think, probably a few hundred emails that day, those emails crossed back and forth all day. At 9 o'clock that night, I sent an email to those ecosystem partners saying that St Greg's had come forward and offered this young man boarding for the 3 weeks until the HSC and until the exams had finished, that they'd offered him that boarding free of charge to go and free of charge to that young man, regardless of whether he attended St Greg's or not. GHD offered him a job from the minute the HSC finished through to the time university began. UTS came forward and offered him a scholarship to attend and do a Bachelor of Engineering. It was Bachelor of Science at that time, but he ended up liking work so much at GHD, he changed it to engineering. That ecosystem came together and invested in our young man. And that young man, and actually one of the ecosystem partners, somebody from GHD, rang me at 9 o'clock when I sent out that email, and she told me it was one of the most joyous days of her career, as it was for all of us. And that young man has already started to show us what he's capable of. He did an internship with Career Trackers at GHD. He changed to engineering. And this week I had the honour of going and witnessing his Career Trackers internship presentation. And I learnt that he did 2 pitch proposals while he was an intern and both resulted in incoming business to GHD. That young man tonight has asked me to share his name. His name is David Wyman, and I want you to remember that name because I have no doubt that it's a name you're going to hear again and again. This year we had 60 students graduating from Year 12, and they've all chosen to go on to university. And we always said at Go that if we made that journey through school easier, if we gave our students the resources and tools to get through school, they would self-select further education. And all these students did. We had our first graduate Go student this year, graduating from a Bachelor of Health Science in the Uni of SA. And he's moved states, gotten engaged, and is now looking for work. This year we've got students studying engineering, business, advertising and media, medicine, law, the arts, education, marine biology, communications, nursing, and much more. We've got children from kindergarten through to Year 12, and they've all had incredibly successful years. They've completed their years. We've got students who are head boy and prefects and doing really, really well. These stories are the story of the Go Foundation. Our story is not one of numbers or spreadsheets or emails or contracts. Our stories are the hearts and minds of these children here today and these young people here. And in this NAIDOC year of voice, treaty and truth, it is ever so important, and more important than ever before, that we give our students the ability to share their voice, and that we amplify those voices and give them a seat at the table. You've heard tonight, and you can see what that can do, what opening doors and giving those opportunities can do for these kids. So I want to leave you with one message. As the speeches finish and we show you Lua and Yaren's video, and you go off and you talk to our students tonight, please ask yourself, and as you leave this venue tonight, ask yourself, what else can we be doing to open doors and provide opportunities to these students? What else can we be doing to give them a platform? Because that's all we do. We give them a platform, they do the hard work, and they shine. Thank you very much for all your support. This ecosystem could not be possible without your support. Thank you.